Hello! Thanks so much for joining me in this virtual presentation to explore how what teaching assistants and faculty do are related to how students engage in the engineering classroom. Like all other presentations and papers associated with ASEE 2020, this presentation was originally scheduled to be given in person in Montreal this year. That was before COVID-19 took over all of our lives and turned so much on end. But to add a little Montreal spirit to these next 15 minutes, I've added some photos of Montreal to this presentation that I took in 2019 when I was fortunate enough to visit this beautiful city. And now, back to the research. My name is Denise Wilson, and I am a professor of electrical and computer engineering at the University of Washington in Seattle. I appreciate you taking the time to be a part of the virtual audience for this study and to listen to results from our recent research on TA and faculty support with respect to how those two elements influence student engagement. My hope is that these results will provide some valuable insight into what's going on with students in terms of how they engage and how faculty and TA support and interactions are likely to influence decisions to participate in or pay attention in engineering courses. Your reflection on and insight into how faculty and TAs can draw students into greater engagement in engineering programs is welcome and appreciated, and I hope to see you at the question and answer session associated with this paper. If you are not able to attend, however, please also feel free to send me feedback at the email address given on this slide. To start, few would argue that student engagement is not important in higher education. A long and rich history of research supports the importance of such engagement in the college experience. While a more extensive review of specific studies is provided in the paper associated with this presentation, I'd like to start by zeroing in on two critical points. First, engagement has been shown to be related to positive academic outcomes. For example, in Carini's study, a large study over 1,000 students at multiple diverse institutions, demonstrated strong and positive links between engagement and academic performance. While these links were more expansive for GPA, two of the three engagement measures, the amount of academic work and the degree to which students participated in educationally fruitful activities, were linked to standardized measures of critical thinking. As importantly, however, this study showed that while significant for all students, the links were stronger for students of lower abilities. In other words, for those students coming into courses with lower abilities, engagement as measured by participation was even more important to academic outcomes than it was for higher ability students. A similar pattern was evident in studies that zeroed in on academic persistence. In a 2008 study, student academic engagement as measured by how often students participated in such activities as asking questions in class, making presentations in class, and coming to class having done the reading, were positively associated with persistence during the second year of college. And similar to the study on the previous slide, this result was more prominent for students of lower abilities and also for students of color. Both of these studies suggest that supporting engagement can be a game changer for students who are underrepresented, whether by race, ability, or other characteristic. As with engagement, few studies negate the importance of what faculty do, both in their support of and interactions with students, in promoting positive academic outcomes. In the big picture, faculty and peers are regarded as the two most important forces in socialization for students on college campuses. And when faculty support is particularly strong and positive, it can counteract any negative or distracting peer influences. Better grades, greater satisfaction, improved learning, and stronger cognitive development are all within reach of faculty influence on students. Unfortunately, far less is known about how teaching assistants, or TAs, influence the academic outcomes, persistence, and satisfaction experienced by students in college. But the existing literature on TA support and interactions, while sparse, does nevertheless support the idea that TAs have a different influence on students than faculty and peers. TAs stand on a sort of middle ground between peers and faculty, providing support for learning but also playing a peer role in influencing the focus and attitude that students bring into learning. This teacher alongside role is both important and unique, creating a role for TAs that neither faculty nor peers are inherently suited to fill. In this study, our research team was interested in the separate influences of TA and faculty support, as well as that of instructor interactions on engagement. Do TA behaviors influence student engagement? Do faculty behaviors influence student engagement? We looked to investigate these questions separately to understand differences in the role that faculty play versus TAs. And we also wanted to understand whether these relationships between instructional support and engagement varied with TA, with course, or with a faculty member teaching a course. Understanding these potential nesting effects was the focus of the third research question, shown here. This study was cross-sectional and conducted within a single research institution. It studied 7 large undergraduate courses in mechanical and electrical engineering. The demographics of the group study were fairly typical of many mechanical and electrical engineering programs in the United States. Men were present in a significant majority, Asian students were overrepresented, and Black and other underrepresented racial minorities were highly underrepresented in this group. The results of this study came from analyzing survey data that measured both engagement and faculty and TA support in the 7 engineering courses of interest. Hierarchical linear regression models were used to understand associations between TA support and interactions and engagement in the first level of each model, between faculty support and engagement in the second level of each model, and interaction effects between TA and faculty support in the third level of each model. 2 forms of engagement were studied. In a vast majority of studies on engagement, the observable measure of time on task is studied. How much work is the student doing? How often does the student participate in class? How much time does the student spend doing things that are known to be fruitful? The National Survey of Student Engagement, a leader in engagement studies, focuses in on these time on task measures, which are predominantly self-reported by students rather than observed by third parties. This study also used a participation measure, like the National Survey on Student Engagement, to capture what students were doing and how often they were doing such things as asking questions in class and participating in class discussions. However, this study also included a less observable measure of participation, attention. How well were students able to focus in class and attend to teaching and material being presented during class? These 2 measures complement one another, with participation emphasizing behavior and attention emphasizing motivation. Now, on to the results. First, the correlation between interactions with faculty and interactions with TAs was quite high and significant, and therefore only one measure was used in the regression model to avoid the confounding influence of 2 variables measuring very similar things. Therefore, TA interactions were retained in the model, while faculty interactions were removed. The resulting linear regression model for participation showed, not surprisingly, that TA support, faculty support, and interactions with instructors positively and significantly predicted participation. Likewise, TA support and faculty support positively and significantly predicted attention, but interactions with TAs significantly and negatively predicted attention. Thus, while support that faculty and TAs provide for students through asking questions, showing care and respect for students, and being organized and clear in teaching style is positively linked to how much students participate in class and how well they pay attention. Interactions with faculty and TAs, however, tell a slightly different story. Students who have frequent interactions with TAs or faculty participate more in class, but they pay less attention. To understand a little bit more about this result, let's take a look at interaction effects. The interaction effects between TA interactions with students and faculty support were significant in our regression models. As shown here, it appears that those students who had fewer such interactions paid attention at a level that seemed relatively unresponsive to faculty support. In other words, the amount of attention these high interaction students paid in class was about the same regardless of what faculty were doing to support them. In contrast, the attention of students who did not have frequent interactions with TAs seemed more responsive to faculty support, with more faculty support resulting in much higher attention levels. This result suggests that some students may be giving up on paying attention in class and instead relying on more individual interactions with instructors to compensate for that lack of attention. While significant interaction effects also emerged for participation, the results were opposite to those for attention. With participation, students who had high interactions with TAs demonstrated participation that was strongly linked to faculty support. The more support, the more students participated. Students who had fewer interactions with their instructors, however, did not report as strong an increase in participation with increasing faculty support. Unlike attention, the role of interactions appeared to increase the relationship between support and participation. One likely explanation for this result is that students who seek out interactions are also more likely to participate, and when they do, higher faculty support encourages that participation even more. For more reserved students, however, faculty support is still a predictor of participation, but not as much so for the more interactive students. Finally, to address our last research question, we constructed a null hierarchical linear model, or HLM, to understand whether these effects of instructional support and interactions were influenced by certain types of TAs, courses, or faculty. The HLM model showed that students were the strongest predictor of both attention and participation, and the type of course, TA, and faculty were irrelevant to the relationships shown in the previous slide. This result speaks strongly to the generalizability of the results across a wide range of engineering classrooms and instructors. In summary, the actions of both TAs and faculty were strongly linked to student engagement in this study. Like other studies, students who were struggling may benefit more from student-instructor interactions, using these interactions to compensate for difficulty in paying attention in the classroom. And in conclusion, our study supports the existing literature in highlighting the very important role that faculty play in student experiences. In this case, their engagement in the courses they take. But this study also supports an equally important role played by the TAs in the engagement of students in their learning and implies a need for studies of both instructional roles in future studies. While it may seem obvious that providing greater support for students leads to greater engagement, the more subtle ways in which interactions with students play into these relationships and the differences in the impact of faculty and TAs certainly merit further study, especially as the role of TAs and other contingent instructors continues to grow and expand in engineering programs around the country. Well, thank you for joining me today and taking a look at our study of instructional support and engagement. Have a wonderful day.